Well, I just want to start off by saying, I sometimes say this at the start of a talk. I say the person that has their health has 1,000 dreams. The person that loses their health has only one. Think about that for a moment. And this phrase for me helps to encapsulate how important health is to our life. Health is really the foundation of our life. Without our health, we don't have anything. Without our health, our goals, our plans, our dreams fall to the sidelines. Without our health, we're unable to contribute back to our friends, to our family, to our community. So health is really, should be seen as the most precious part of our life. How many of you would agree with the statement, health is our greatest wealth? Have you ever heard of that?
Yep.
Do you agree with
We
that?
are saying in our even our everyday life, health is wealth.
I think it was Gandhi that said that.
Gandhi just followed, we have not
I think it was Vivekananda.
One of the many people that
Only
said
said
that.
it's in our Upanishads and Sutras, yeah.
And many people say, whatever's happened in your life, you should be grateful if you have your health. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, sure.
You should be grateful. And how many of you want to live a long and healthy life?
We want to help
Everyone. Because what's the alternative? No one wants to live in pain. No one wants to be disabled or diseased. Okay. The question is, how many of us really take action to make sure that we stay healthy in our life?
That's the question.
How many of us can truly say we make those choices? And we want to look at our health a bit like a bank account. But the difference with the health bank account is you start off in the start of your life with a big deposit of health in your early life. And every day you're taking a little bit out and taking a little bit out. But you can also put a little bit back in every day with the good choices you make. And over time there's that question, are you making the right investments in your health to make sure you stay well as you get older? For some of you, you've lived a healthy life so far, you've made a lot of good decisions and you're benefiting from that. But you now end up coming into the later part in your life and it would be great to stay as healthy as possible and feel as good as possible, and have a mind as clear as possible for the rest of that time. So what can we do if we do that? So the one thing I would say is, you do have a lot of power over your own health. There are things you can do, there are choices you can make. And it's a good idea to think about that and consider what can you start to personally do, what would you be happy to do to improve your health at the moment, and there's many things you can do. So that's the first thing I want to say. But the question is, if you lose your health in your life, what are your solutions? Firstly, can everyone understand my accent? Is it clear enough?
Yes.
Is it Irish?
It's Scottish.
Scottish.
But it's very soft.
Yeah.
So, if you lose your health in life, what are your options? And I know that there are doctors here today, health professionals here today, and there seems to be three major options. There is the medical option, there is the alternative medical or alternative health options, and there's also, maybe you call it the non-medical option. So with the medical option, what we find is, in my country, and I suppose here in many countries, there is a standardized medical system. Okay, so obviously doctors and nurses and hospitals, education around that, pharmaceuticals, and we would call that, the conventional medical system. And I'm not telling people not to use doctors or anything like that. I'm not in that camp. I'm not telling people don't get medication or anything like that. I think that can be very useful in many, many situations. And what we tend to find is our hospitals are full of people and full of very unwell people. And many of them are unwell with chronic diseases. They're not necessarily unwell because they've had an accident or a virus or a parasite or a genetic condition, but they have chronic disease. Do you understand what a chronic disease means? So the definition of a chronic disease is a disease that lasts a long period of time and actually does not respond to medical treatment. That's actually one of the definitions of it. So we're going to sometimes medical to look for a solution in the medical side for chronic disease, and actually they're saying to us, we don't have a solution for you. We have maybe pharmaceuticals and treatments that might help you feel more comfortable, but we can't get rid of the cause of the disease. So sometimes medical is not the best option for some things. What's the alternative medical? Well, that's where we look at people who maybe aren't in the conventional hospitals, but they may be healing, and they have maybe herbs, different types of healing practices. Maybe in India you have Ayurveda and things like that. But to me, a lot of that is very similar to the medical side, just a little bit differently wrapped up. And what I mean by that is that idea that we can go to someone that will give us a pill or a therapy or do something to us to make us healthy again. And the word health really comes from the root whole, to be a whole person again, to be healthy and whole again. So we're looking for a magic solution sometimes. It's true that a lot of us don't want to have to make big changes. How many of you like to have to change your life? It's very difficult to do that. It's difficult to change and start an exercise program, maybe start sleeping at a different time, meditation, or whatever it is you have to add into your life. And it's especially hard to change your diet. It's very, very hard to do. So people don't want to change, and they want to look for these other solutions that can help them. Okay? But what's the third option? The third option is a non-medical option where you realize that healthcare is actually about self-care. Healthcare is about self-care. It's about looking after yourself and making the choices and the decisions every day, not when you get sick, but actually prior to that, so you can remain healthy for life and reduce the chances of sickness. Now, getting back to these chronic diseases we're talking about, you maybe have heard of some of them: heart disease, high blood pressure, stroke, the different forms of cancer, diabetes, autoimmune diseases, many things. And perhaps some of you have some issues with these, and perhaps you might be taking medication that help with some of these things. But the truth is, and this is not from the raw food conspiracy side, this is from the medical, the conventional, the nutrition side, the hospitals. These are diseases of lifestyle. They're diseases of lifestyle very often. They're either contributed to by lifestyle or they're made worse through lifestyle. I believe they're very closely linked to lifestyle. And by lifestyle, we mean the things that we have control over, the choices we make every day. And there are many things that we can do in our daily life to improve our health. And I'm sure if we were to ask around the pavilion here, there's many, many things we can bring up. You can sleep better, you can think more positive thoughts, you can exercise more, you can get more fresh air, you can even contemplating the beauty of a beautiful day, laughing with friends. This is a wonderful health activity. Getting together with people is good for your health. Absolutely good thing for your health. But the one thing that a lot of us fall behind on is our diet. It is the thing that a lot of people are very sensitive about. It's the thing that people don't want to change so much and would like to keep the same. But the truth is, it is the biggest risk factor, the biggest contributing factor towards this possibility of getting chronic disease, which is really the possibility of developing disease, disability, and a premature death. And that's what chronic disease leads to. But it really leads to a life of misery. It's a life of pain, misery, of not being able to do the things we want to do, being restricted in life. And we actually have some control over that because it is very connected to lifestyle. Now, I'm sure a lot of you know that alcohol is related to ill health and tobacco is related to ill health, and you would agree with that. But people have a little bit of a hard time sometimes accepting that diet is also playing a part. Okay? So Diet is the biggest risk factor. There was a thing called the Global Burden of Disease Study. I don't know if you've heard of that. It was a very big study they did in the US and worldwide, looking at the risk factors to contribute towards disease. What are the things that contribute towards these chronic diseases? And in the US at least, they found the biggest risk factor by far was diet. It was dietary choices. Now you can look at that in two ways. You can say that's terrible because I don't want to have to change anything about my diet. Or you can look at it the other way. That's great, because it means I have some control over it. It means I can actually make some choices. It's very difficult to imagine changing the diet. So it's very sensitive to talk about these things. But there's a lot of evidence now as to the things that we can do to help improve and reduce our chance of these chronic diseases. Personally, I'm on the raw vegan side of things. I eat a raw foods diet. But I don't necessarily do it because of trying to avoid disease. It's a good benefit for me. But I'm like many of you, I want to enjoy my life. I want to have a fun life. I want to have a beautiful life. I want to have a social life. I want to feel good. To me, this is a feel-good lifestyle. And what I would like to say is that moving towards a healthier diet in whatever way you can, you should never see it as a negative thing or something you're going to lose, you're going to miss out on. You're not going to lose or miss out on anything. Your life will actually be richer. The healthier you are, we tend to think sometimes if I give up something in my life, there might be something that you think, I've got a problem with that food, I eat too much of it, I know it doesn't make me feel good, it has a bad reaction with me, but you keep on eating it. And you might think, if I give that up, I'll have such a big hole in my life, you know, I can never give that up. The truth is, if you give something up, it leaves a vacuum. And that vacuum gets filled with something even better. Actually, that's what often happens. I knew a man one time who changed a little bit of his diet. And what happened for him was, he had more energy all of a sudden. He all of a sudden wanted to do something. He went to a yoga class. And he thought, I've got this energy now, I want to go and start doing yoga. He started to do this class and he enjoyed it. He started to learn yoga, he became a teacher, he lost weight, he felt better. He led to great things in his life, he met other people. Living this healthier lifestyle or moving to a healthier lifestyle and changing parts of your diet leads to good things often. It can lead to a bigger, richer and better life for you. Now going back to that global burden of disease study, what specifically did they find about diet? What was the number one thing a person could do that we did it across America? What's the one thing that we can do that will help reduce the most amount of disease and people in hospital and all this pain and all this stuff that's happening? The number one thing was that people aren't eating enough fruit. Once again, it's not my propaganda, my information. This is very mainstream information. Not special fruit, not something from a special place. Home in our garden, fruits, vegetables, the things you have in the shop, the apples, the bananas, the pears, anything that you like, anything that you enjoy. Eating more fruit is a huge protective risk factor against all diseases and makes a huge contribution to the longevity of your life, feeling better in every single way. It's really a magical thing. So potentially I can convince you today, maybe go out and consider eating a little bit more fruit in your life. If you don't have any fruit in your diet, maybe consider one piece a day. Have you ever heard of an apple a day? What did they say? An apple a day keeps you not It's very true. Well, you don't just stay at an apple a day. You maybe start at an apple a day and maybe in a few months, you think, you know, I like this apple, maybe I'll have two. Maybe I'll have a little bit more. And gradually you'll feel better, you'll feel the results and you'll think, oh, I really want to do more and maybe move on from that. So eating more fruit, the number one thing you can start to do, if you don't want to change your diet too much, you can eat more fruit in any way, any type of fruit you like, anything that you enjoy, you can eat more of it. And and you start to see and feel some benefits in your life. And that's not, once again, it's not propaganda. This is from the mainstream information research. So why does a person end up, like me, go to the extreme of 100% raw vegan diet for 11 or 12 years? Personally, I've always been on the path of living a healthier life. From a young age, I grew up in a place called Glasgow, Scotland. Some of you maybe have connections and relatives in the UK. I don't know, maybe some of you do. But perhaps like Pennsylvania, a lot of people in the UK, they drink a lot of alcohol. I don't know if that's common over in Pennsylvania, in Allentown. Drink a lot of alcohol, smoke cigarettes, take drugs, eat junk food all day and all that kind of stuff. We have really bad health in Scotland. And when I was growing up, people said to me, alcohol's bad for you. My parents or the school, drugs are bad. My uncle told me, don't start smoking, it's bad for you. I was one of those people that just listened to that. I know that sounds a bit simple, but I wasn't looking to be a rebel or anything like that. When my parents and different people said, those things are bad for you, I said, okay, I don't think I'm going to do them. So it made sense to me. I don't want to do things that are bad for me. And I've just continued in that path. I just continued on. When I was in my teens, I felt low energy. I didn't have the energy I wanted. And I just started to look at what can I do personally. Not looking at what someone else out there can do or what the world can do for me, but what can I do with them? What choices can I make? Taking responsibility. And I started to drink more water and I felt a little bit better. And I started to cut down on the sugar in my diet and I felt a little bit better. Eventually I started to cut out on the meat in my diet and the caffeine in my diet, and I felt better every time, and I felt like a cleanse, like a detox. Like I felt more alive in some ways. And I just kept going down that path over the years and asked myself questions. And on top of this, I would say, why is it that our life is so complicated? We wake up and we have a home that's been built for us, we have a heated house, we have warm water, we have very complicated food, we have clothing, whereas the animals get up and they just fly or walk and they just pick something up and eat it and they have a nice day. So I was always wondering this, why is it so complicated our life? And at the same time I was curious about feeling better and feeling healthier, and maybe some of you are on a spiritual path as well, many of you I assume. And I was thinking about that, how do I get higher energy or higher spiritual sort of energy, I guess, in a way. And I thought that maybe food played a part, so I was experimenting with that. And I just kept going down that path, and I came across a video one day, and the man said he ate fruits and vegetables, and he was out competing athletes half his age, he was full of energy, and he looked fantastic and everything. And he said he just ate fruits and vegetables, and I thought, wow, that makes sense. It made sense to me. I don't know why, but it made sense, and it made sense that human beings could live in nature of the truth. And the human beings are actually, the more I learned about that, human beings are frugivores. Like that anthropoid, like all the major apes, they eat mostly fruit. And we're very similar to them. Right? So I started to experiment with that diet, learn more about it, and I just started to feel fantastic. And I had some aches and pains that disappeared. I had digestion problems that went away. My mind felt clearer. I felt like my brain was turning on and changing. I saw my body go through what's called detox. I saw spots or rashes and stuff come up. And it's a process of the body, I suppose, eliminating things and cleaning itself and all that. And then I wanted to learn more, so I went to events and I met fantastic people and had a wonderful time and met people like Dave. And I've just continued on that journey. I started a festival in my own country because I have a passion to share this. And I think everyone should have the gift of knowing this information, that if you're ever unwell in life, maybe you have the power to do something about it. Maybe you can change your diet. Maybe there are things that you can do to help yourself. So, yes, I'll just finish off by saying, thank you for being here, and I can answer questions. But life is about, as you all are doing here, about something that we must enjoy, not endure. And if we're healthier we are, the more we enjoy our life, the more energy we have. And don't worry about making these changes. You will have a fuller, better life as a result of it. It'll be a beautiful thing. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. And any questions? I'm happy.
Question, yeah, let's see, we are having a lot of fruits, veggies. Where the proteins come from?
That's a great question. Is everyone concerned about that, about protein?
Yes.
Yeah. So protein is very interesting. Does anyone have a good definition for what protein is?
So carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and nitrogen.
Right,
Made up
right.
of amino acids.
Right, amino acids. Yeah. Does anyone know what protein? What are the food sources of protein?
We take lentils,
Lentils for protein. Anything else?
Tofu.
Tofu as well.
Grain.
Tofu.
some grain,
Yeah.
nuts.
So protein,
Nuts, yeah.
protein in the form of amino acids is one of the building blocks
I
of
can
life.
reply her question.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Okay. Because when we have carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and when we don't eat protein, few of the carbohydrates also change to protein at certain times.
So essentially, everything that is alive, everything that is alive has protein in it. Protein is a building block of life along with carbohydrates and lipids, which are called fats. So everything, every plant, every animal, everything, every cell, is made up of protein to some degree. Proteins are made up by amino acids, and even our DNA is a kind of a form of a protein in a way. But all of the life on Earth needs protein. All of the animals need protein, but they don't eat lentils, and they don't eat tofu, and they don't eat meat. What they eat is the diet that is suited to them, and because that diet is suited to them, they get the protein they need from that diet. So cows eat grass. That's where they get their protein from. Anteaters eat ants. That's where they get their protein from. Hummingbirds eat flowers and the nectar of flowers. That's where they get their protein from. Because there's protein in everything that's living because it's amino acids. We take in these amino acids, we turn it into the human protein that we need. It's actually easier for us to do that than to take in the protein of a cow or a pig, and then we have to break it down. Also, we generally cook those things, so we're actually degrading the proteins, which can actually lead to other problems for us. So when we eat food raw, we're eating the amino acids in from fruits and vegetables, and an easier state for us to actually build the protein that we need. So hopefully that answers the question.
I have a question. I don't want to look like a cow.
You don't want to look like a cow.
Right.
Then don't eat grass.
So,
Don't eat grass then.
so that's great because you're not a cow.
The reason I say that is if you eat the carbohydrates, at some point, I guess they convert into protein, right?
No.
Amino acid.
No.
What you eat, if you eat any whole food you eat,
Right.
so any whole food, any plant food or animal food, but if you eat just fruit, you eat just bananas, there is protein in that. Now here's an interesting point. The question might be, well, how much protein? Is there enough protein? Now, the interesting thing is, there was a time in your life where you really needed a lot of protein, and it was when you doubled in size. Some of you maybe don't remember that. When you were a baby, you doubled in size, okay? And you needed a lot of protein to continue to grow. But what were you consuming as a baby? Mother's milk. Mother's milk. Do you know how much protein is in mother's milk?
No.
You think it would be? But mother's milk is 5% of the calories of mother's milk is protein. Only 5%. Did you know it's the lowest of any animal found is the human? Of all the animals, we actually have the least protein in our mother's milk. So for a baby to grow only means 5% protein. Well, you're not a baby, you're a grown man, so you don't even need that much in some ways. But fruits and vegetables often have more than 5%, but fruit has between 3 and 8%. And it's also more evidence that fruit is really a perfect food for us. It has the right sweet spot of protein for us. We don't want to have too much protein either. Too much protein is an issue. It's taxing on your kidneys. It It can lead to inflammation, it has problems, but too much protein is also a problem. So I'm more concerned about keeping my protein low than trying to have too much. In the diet, in the gym industry, people are trying to eat lots of protein because they want to build muscle and all this stuff. And the truth is, the biggest, strongest animals on the planet are mostly all plant eaters. They're not consuming high amounts of protein. And then the other thing is that actually it's hard to have a high protein diet because when you find protein stays often around about 10-15% of a person's diet, regardless if they're a vegetarian, a vegan, a meat eater. So there's a lot to say there, but you don't have to worry about looking like a cow. I don't think that's going to
She had a question.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, what's your daily routine? How you start your day? What you eat the whole day?
Well, I don't like to eat straight away in the morning, generally. There's something I do, it depends. I don't have a great routine, I would say, but when you're a fruit eater, you tend to eat a little bit seasonally. So it depends a little bit on what might be in season, and that's part of the joys of it. It's a bit of an adventure to try and find something to eat sometimes. But I like to eat a lot of grapes, a lot of bananas. These are big parts of my diet. Very simple foods: grapes, bananas, apples, mangoes. So whatever I find, whatever I have in season, I eat lots of it. So I eat what's called mono meals. So you might think, well, you must eat a big variety of things to get all the different nutrients. The truth is, you don't really have to do that. It's nice to get variety over the course of the year. But each day I tend to eat a mono meal of fruit. Today we had a smoothie, and I think it was maybe 8 or 9 bananas in the smoothie.
Mhm.
Was it 8 or 9 bananas, smoothie and water? And we drank that. I think I had some few tomatoes this morning, some big tomatoes. I had some grapes. I had a bunch of other things. So I'm
Is that filling?
very full right now.
Is that filling?
To make sure.
It's actually,
Is that filling?
he's interested in, so I do the festival in the
Because
UK.
you might get hungry in 2 hours.
That's why you eat so much. That's why I don't eat just one banana.
Yeah, but
I don't eat any grains, so I replace my carbohydrate grains with fruit.
when I have this just a smoothie or just foods, I don't get that satisfaction that I've had a meal. You know, it's just not there. Or if I indulge myself, I have it. I like my favorite smoothie is apple banana and apple carrot beetroot combination with a little bit of ginger and mint. But if I have too much of it, my stomach just rebels.
Sure.
And I feel that need that I have to have, maybe I have to have a cheese sandwich or something to balance it out.
Sure. So there's a few things to say about that. And we have a festival in the UK and people come and eat 100% raw diet for a week. And the thing that everyone says to me is, I can't believe how full I feel. I feel so full in this food. The reason for that is the feeling of fullness comes from 2 places. One is your blood sugar rising. That's a trigger for you to stop eating. Second is for your stomach to be increased. You have sensors in your stomach. When your stomach starts to fill up, that sends a signal to the brain to stop eating. That's the feeling of being full.
Yeah, but I feel like I haven't had a meal.
You haven't had a meal. You haven't, and most likely you haven't.
Yeah,
Because
the
it's-
satisfaction
No
is
mental
not there.
satisfaction.
You're right, but that's because you've probably not consumed as much as you would consume with a meal. For a meal, people tend to have 1,000 calories or 1,500.
And then there's also
smoothie is probably not enough.
and there's also I have a trouble with the acidity.
So that's an excellent question. That's what I had as well. I had a thing called, I think you call it GERD, gastrointestinal reflux disease, acid reflux. Have any of you experienced that? Heartburn, we call it. A number of you have that.
So
So
what I'm saying is when I just have the smoothie,
Sure.
if I have a good quantity of smoothie, then I also feel that acidity.
yeah, so if you go into the supermarket in Allentown, you'll find a whole row of digestion tablets, of digestion medication. I assure you that those are not being bought by fruitarians and raw vegans. Those are being bought by people on the conventional diet. And when I grew up, I had terrible acid reflux all the time. Why is that happening? Because we're not eating food that's appropriate for the stomach. We're not using the foods that are appropriate for our digestive system. We're eating foods that are very high in protein. When it goes into our stomach, we need more acid to break it down. It's very hard to break down, especially high protein foods. Red meat and meat and things like these last in your stomach for 4 or 5 hours. Fruit goes in your stomach and comes out in 20 minutes. It's already digested in your mouth. When you put fruit in your mouth, you have enzymes in your mouth that start to break it down. Once you've swallowed it, it's already in a digestible state. It goes into your stomach, it goes out of your stomach into your intestines. It's very simple, very quick. When you put meat into your mouth, there's no enzymes in your mouth for protein. There can't be because you would consume your own tongue if that's the case. But it goes into your stomach and there are enzymes in your stomach that break down the meat. But it requires more acid as well. And that acid sometimes overwhelms and comes up. So these acid issues are not coming from fruit. When I have acid reflux, it's like water coming into my mouth. It's like water. It's not like acid. Acid problems, especially the digestion, are coming more from the high protein foods and the high fat foods, which are much harder for our body to digest. Fruit digests incredibly easy in our body. When you put a banana in your mouth, you mush it up and it breaks up so quickly. Other things, chewing away, it's all dry in your mouth. Fruits are the most pleasant, easy, quick things to digest.
There's a question here.
I have a question. Now they advertise these pea protein powders, pea protein burgers. Where do they fit into this?
Well, I think people have a fear that they're not getting enough protein. They have worries about protein. I would say don't worry about protein at all. You're all getting enough protein and you'll always get enough protein regardless of how you eat. So the issue is actually people eat too much protein. And it's very strange that there's more and more encouragement to eat more protein, but that's just because people think that's the case. It's not the case that we need to be consuming high amounts of protein. And there's very few people that ever have, basically almost no incidence of protein deficiencies or people lacking protein. But it's become something